scolding because next week's topic is supposed to be Imagine Peace in terms of the Centers for Spiritual Living. And I know that this week is Om Sweet Om, bringing it home. And that's where I was going, just with a different title, because the word imagine and the idea of imagining has been on my mind for about a month. And as I was thinking about this topic, is peace, and I thank you, John Coriel, for the glasses. He's doing more than just holding the high watch. And it's not a just. It's important. As I was thinking about it, Gandhi instructed us to be the peace we want to see. The songs that we've just heard kind of say the same thing in different ways. And I was starting to wonder, do we really know what peace is? How do we define it? It's not just the absence of war or the absence of turmoil or whatever. It's how do we have that peace? How do we be the peace? What is that thing that's going to be inside you that's going to say, I'm expressing peace today? So, apologies to Colette and the music team. I sort of jumped the song as well because I'm going to use John Lennon's song Imagine to guide this talk. She's cracking up over there. Okay. So I want to start with this was in Science of Mind magazine Friday, the 13th, Friday morning. And it's from Eckhart Tolle. And he says, unease, anxiety, tension, stress, worry, all forms of fear are caused by too much future and not enough presence. Okay, too much future, not enough presence. Guilt, regret, resentment, grievances, sadness, bitterness, and all forms of non-forgiveness are caused by too much past and not enough presence. And Ernest Holmes followed that by saying, today is filled with blessings for myself and others. The past is gone, and I gladly loose it and let it go. The present is filled with peace and joy, and the future with hope. And you can see that I scribbled all over it. So, as John Lennon started to sing, and I looked this up, this song was released in 1971. So it's been in our universal consciousness for a long time. But he starts with, and when I heard this, I said, that's where I need to be. He said, imagine there's no heaven, no hell below us, above us, only sky. Oh my God. I mean, if you go next door and suggest that, we'd probably get run out of town on a rail. No heaven, no hell, we're here. We're present. We're here now. We're living this now. We're not living to avoid going to hell or possibly go to some place called heaven or nirvana or, whatever the teaching might take you to. We're here to be here now. We're here to express and to live and to experience all the things that life has to give us and that we want to bring into our lives, whatever that means, because it's different for each and every one of us. We all don't have the same holidays, or not holidays, just lost the word in mid-sentence. We don't all have the same hopes and dreams. We don't have the same hobbies. We don't enjoy the same books necessarily, or maybe not as much as the person next to you, or the movies, or whatever it might be. I remember going to see the musical Hamilton, and I think it's because of my hearing, because I think it was before I had my hearing aids. I couldn't hear the lyrics. So for me, it was like a run-on thing. When it was over, it was at Barber Man. Whole place is standing up, and I'm sitting down. The audience goes crazy, but they went crazy. And I was like, I didn't get it. I didn't hear it. I didn't like it. So I imagine if I went in now with my bionic ears, I'd have a different feeling. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Nobody said you can't come back. Nobody said, you can't. Deborah at the time didn't say, you can't ride back home with me or, anything like that. So we have that ability to be that. So, but we, again, have to be present to where we are. Not thinking about where we're going to be, where we were, who's going to be there, who's not going to be there, whatever it is that keeps us away from being present. Joel Goldsmith has a book called Practicing the Presence, and it's all about being present. And he has an exercise, and I can't remember which book I read this in of his, where he talks about the practice of stopping several times during the course of a day and just being still. I had a friend in a book group, oh my goodness, back in the 90s, and he read that, and he had a little timer on his watch, and he started with it going off once an hour, and it would beep, and he would just be still for a minute. Then he went to a half hour. Then he went to every 15 minutes. And after about a month, he came to the book group, and I think he was about 6 inches off the ground. He was just amazingly calm and he was like one of those things you see in the science fiction movies where it's drawing all the energy to him. He was sort of drawing it in and giving it out again. It was just an amazing thing. I used to do it at work. I lived close to work, but lived in an environment of work that was high tension. My two partners like to quarrel with each other and argue about stuff, and I would go hide in my office and practice Joel Goldsmith. I would have a meeting with the two of them and have to go back into my office, sit down, look out, because I had a decent view that helped settle me, and just be still. And many times during the day. So we're here. We're here, not going anywhere. Imagine there's no countries. Well, countries, counties, cities, towns, neighborhoods, whatever it is, we're really just sort of saying, let's just imagine that we're taking care of who we are. In the Bible and in 16 or 17 of the major religions that you've heard of around the world is the golden rule. Love your neighbor as yourself. In the Christian teaching, the second commandment that Jesus said was the most important is love God with all your heart. So Ernest Holmes takes us in both directions with his writings and so forth. And what we're going to is that idea of faith. Faith sees the invisible, believes the unbelievable, and receives the impossible. I'm going to read that one again because it's chewy. Faith sees the invisible, believes the unbelievable, and receives the impossible. And Holmes said, and so my faith, the faith of the little child in me, rises with expectancy to meet this new day in joy and to accept the bounty of heaven. So where is that coming from? Where is that power coming from? It's not from the religion. He says, imagine there's no religion. One of the things that led me to doing this talk this way is I was listening to John Lennon sing, or the recording of John Lennon sing. I wish I could listen to John Lennon sing. And I was wondering how many people were scared by this song. First it tells us there's no heaven, no country. What are we all brought up? We're brought up to love our country. We're brought up to think about this heaven and hell thing. I mean, even people who don't, even my atheist friend talks about heaven and hell. So it's like, okay, how much of an atheist is she really? And she'll say, "Oh my God." Well, oh my who? Oh my who? Yeah. So, these things are in the ethos of what we grew up in and how we've matured to where we are now. So, what is sort of capturing your mindset? What do we need to release to get an idea of what that peace is within, that presence that you can be, that stillness in your inner being? I'm still working, so that was from yesterday's reading in the Science of Mind. And the affirmation for the day was, "Today I surrender my greatest challenges to the divine. At every crossroads I choose faith over anxiety and love over fear." Love over fear. So, and fear drives a lot of stuff we do, yes?
Yes.
Fear of what? Not enough. Not enough. But what does Ernest Holmes teach us, in the big thick book, and there's all the little books that he's written, all of the pithy little quotes that we have from him? It's basically, we're in an abundant universe. You need to know whether you're in an abundant universe. Go somewhere where there's trees and try to count the leaves. Go to the beach and count the grains of sand on the beach. Go somewhere where it's really dark and not affected by the aura of the city and count the stars in the Milky Way. The astronomers haven't even done it yet. They estimate it by taking a small segment, counting the stars in that segment and multiplying it by how big the expanse of the Milky Way is. And I'm not making that up. I watched a thing taught by a astrophysicist, and he shared that's how they do that. So sometimes I do make stuff up a little bit, but that's a whole different story. So let me see. I had a couple of things trying to keep me on. So if God is our source, if we really are infinitely sourced, are we really, and we are really living in that all needs met consciousness, in every moment all of our needs are met. We may not see it in the exact moment that we think we want it and need it, but I'm going to say most of the time we really don't know what we want or need because we're not present enough really to our situation to understand what is exactly needed for us in that moment. As some of you know, or maybe all of you, I don't know, my wife passed a little over 5 months ago, and I'm discovering stuff that I need, and I'm discovering stuff that I don't need anymore. What is serving me, what is not serving me, and starting to imagine what it might look like. And I think it started with her celebration service, imagining what my life looks like next. And that's an interesting process, because it was like somebody hit the reset button. A wonderful counselor, the first time I saw her, and I'm excited because I get to see her for another 8 or 9 months before the benefit of the hospice program ends. But first time I saw her, she says, "Well, do you ever talk to her?" And I said, "Well, in my head, whatever." She goes, "Oh, try talking out loud." I said, "Okay, that's interesting." Well, Deborah had a place that she used to like to do a short walk, and then there was a swing that she could sit in. So I take the Deborah walk sometimes seven nights a week, and I'll sit in her swing. I've named it her swing. It's not her swing. And I have conversations. And early on, the conversation was, this wasn't the plan. We talked about this. We agreed. I mean, I'm serious. We spent about a week on and off having the conversation that, well, really, you, and that was her speaking, pointing at me, are going to go first. So we don't really need this and that and whatever. For me, we need, so we just sort of had a whole program figuring, she was going to live to 90 something and I was going to be gone maybe in my late 80s. I mean, that's kind of how our thinking was at the time. So, I've made that complaint a number of times. This is not the plan. I met a couple of new guys in my new hobby of fly fishing, and sharing with one of them, we found out that we'd both lost our spouses not too long ago. He says, this wasn't the plan. This was not the plan. So what happens when the plan gets 86'd, vanishes, just isn't possible? We have a new plan. We rely on this faith that I read to you about. We rely on this all needs met consciousness. We rely on practicing the presence. We rely on that stillness that we can have within. And then we can start to imagine where we go next. But what we're talking about there is creating inner peace, because you're not going to be the peace you want to see until you're the peace you want to be. Ooh, that's pretty good. I just made that up. somebody record that for me. But so you can't be that peace you want to see until you are the peace you want to be, until you are at peace, until you can have things happen. Yes, there's going to be things that happen that rile you up. Yes, there are going to be things that upset you in one way or another. But how do you adjust to them? How do you accept what's happened? How do you move from that point A where whatever it was that happened, and you notice I didn't say happened to you, because that would make you and I a victim. Things happen. And then we make up stories about what happened. Some people tend to awfulize. Others tend to minimize. But probably neither are really present to what happened. My day didn't get ruined because I had a flat tire. I had a flat tire, and maybe I ruined my day by my reaction to the flat tire. Or maybe it was like a no big deal. Oh, I've got a spare tire, I've got the tools, I know how to do it, or I've got Auto Club or a friend I can call or whatever it is, and I'll get the tire changed and then do whatever I was going to do next, maybe a little later than I was going to do it. But that flat tire didn't happen to you. Michael used to talk about the 4 phases, and then I think he calls it the 4 kingdoms, and he talks about it in the beginning of his visioning CDs. The to me, or victimhood. Oh my, everything's happened to me. Or the manifester. I did this. If you go back and find the movie The Secret, or it's not The Secrets, it's a movie that Pam Lambert sent to me. It has somebody applying the concepts of The Secret, saying, I need a parking space, I need a parking space, I need a parking. Well, that's not what we're talking about, right? We're talking about grace and ease. We're talking about flow. We're talking about movement and being in concert with and harmony with the universe in, through, and as us. And after the manifester, where we think we're doing it all instead of knowing that we've got a divine source that's given us a little hand, then we're in the through me, God moving through us, God bringing that energy in and through us, that we can do things, that we're starting to be into the oneness and feel the oneness and know that we have that infinite flow in every moment. And then lastly is the as me, God as me. And we're totally in the space of it is a flow. It's coming naturally, it's moving naturally. And I had a huge aha. I'd been hearing that for maybe 3 or 4 years from him. And one Saturday morning, he used to do 6:30 a.m. Saturday morning meditation retreats, mostly for the practitioners. If you can imagine, there were 400 of them when I left in 2007. He said, it's not that you get to the ASME step and never go back. It's your ability to master all of the steps, to know when you're slipping into victimhood or slipping into believing that maybe you're making everything happen. And to be able to be present enough, to borrow from Eckhart Tolle again, to understand what's going on in the moment and not be grabbed up by whatever commotion might be around you. You know, we're in a tumultuous political time. You know, all the stuff that we're hearing. How do you navigate through that? You have to become present. Because none of that stuff is you. None of that stuff is me. It's what's happening around us. And our job is to have the discernment to understand what's important to know about, what's important to incorporate into our way of being, and what is not. So when we're at peace within, we have the discernment to know what's important for our inner health and our inner well-being. And then this morning, it just kept coming for me this week, this weekend really. When you make the divine your source, you move through life with an ease and lightness, with an open hand. Tasha Silver. And Holmes says, I hand my life and affairs over to the divine intelligence, to the power that knows how to do everything. You know, somewhere in all of his teachings, it also says everything is created twice. First time I heard that is like, what are they talking about? First in mind, then in form. First in mind, then in form. You know, as I was sitting here, you know, I was looking at the stage. This was an idea I saw at another church. And thought, wow, modular stage, that might be kind of fun. I know it's been a pain in the backside at different times, but on the other hand, it's allowed a lot of flexibility. I remember one night I did a wedding here, and we had the stage go out into the middle of the room so that everyone could see the ceremony from wherever they were sitting. And then I left it that way for a couple of weeks and did talks out there. But then somebody says, you know, half of the group is kind of looking at your rear end while you're talking to the other side of the room. So maybe you want to move back to where you're only the wall is seeing your backside. I don't know. Still wonder whether that was the right decision. But the affirmation for today, and I know Shell and Leland are going to resonate with this one. A little inside story, but they'll probably share it if you ask. Wisdom from the divine guides all my actions today. I am in the flow of ease and grace. And I think when we're in that flow of ease and grace, of knowing that things are unfolding with ease and grace, then we can be at peace. Then we can be practicing the peace we want to see in the world. Because then when we're peaceful, peace will be around us. Ernest Holmes says, if you want a friend or friends, you need to be friendly. What a concept. If you want to be loved, you have to be loving. If you want to be abundant, you have to have abundant thoughts. I remember hearing early on somebody was saying, you know, how do you react? You know, if you're someone that's wanting to be in relationship, as an example, and you see a couple walking down the street holding hands, and it doesn't matter what that couple looks like, it's just if it's something you want, it's what you're desiring, how do you respond? Do you celebrate that? Or do you have envy or jealousy? But if you celebrate it, what you're saying is, that's all things possible. If it can happen for them, it can happen for me. Or if you're putting yourself in the place of whichever individual in the couple you relate to. Although with the new pronoun thing, it's... A group of us went up to the CSL convention back in February. And people were introducing, said, hi, I'm Reverend Emile, my pronouns are he and him, blah, blah, blah. And then a couple people said, well, I'm so-and-so, and my pronouns are he, they. Somebody else was a she, they. And we're driving, I carpooled with two wonderful women that I know. And so we're driving along, and I know that my dear friend Diana is gay, and so I'm thinking she's got a good understanding. So I said, so explain it. And she says, I said, I think I can get the he, him, and the she, her. I said, what's the they about? And she says, well, I'm they. I said, oh, what does that mean? She said, well, on any given day, I could be anywhere on the spectrum. I was like, ooh, I don't get it. But I don't have to. All I have to be is loving the acceptance of her. All I have to do is say, oh, that can exist. And it's not affecting me. It's not asking me to do anything but love that person that I loved anyway. And I say that about Diana because the first day we met, we were drawn together like that. And sharing words of wisdom that were coming from somewhere else through our mouths. And I didn't know anything about her. I didn't know whether she was she, they, a she, whatever. I didn't know. Didn't matter. She was a wonderful person. So, you think about the things you sort of have to give up to be peaceful. You have to give up your tendency to get upset in situations. And I'm not saying any of this is easy and that I'm sort of floating on a cloud somewhere. What I'm saying is this is the work we all have to do, and we move through this step by step. So when we get there and we become that inner peace, we can express that inner peace. Then we can move to that place of oneness with everyone else. We can, as John Lennon ends the song, be in a world where everyone lives as one, like we regularly profess in our 5-step treatments. So I invite you to practice the presence, practice the beingness, to seek that inner peace so that you can be that peace and be in a space where we can all live as one. And I'll just take this into prayer and anchor these ideas, just knowing that we exist in an infinite universe. Formless, expanding in every moment, physically and conceptually, and knowing that it is a vast oneness that flows in, through, and as each and every individual sitting in this room, each and every individual that is occupying everything that is around us and around the globe, and in places maybe we don't even understand that there are beings that are part of the wholeness of the universe. And I know that as we practice this presence, as we understand that there is only one way to be, and that is at peace within, so that we can be the best of who we are meant to be in every moment, that we can have the clarity to take each step in every moment, that it is possible. It is the possibility of the allness and the infinite nature of Spirit flowing in, through, and as us in every moment that I know for each one of us. And that the path is straight and clear. The path is in the presence. The path is in the ease. The path is in the grace. And we flow in it. We allow it to flow in us, through us, and as us. Giving it forth as rapidly as we are taking it in, because it is a circulation that moves the energetic of the universe right here and right now, in, through, and as each and every one of you. It is the perfection of Spirit expressing. And I'm grateful to know this truth, grateful to know that it is expressing so wonderfully and dynamically here and everywhere we go. And I know that as I release this word into the law, that it cannot return to us unfulfilled, but only fulfilled. And so to declare with great gratitude that it is already done in the one mind and in the individual minds that we all are, we say together, and so it is. Thank you. Love and blessings.